Can we stop trading, please? LOL at Rams NFL.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I am the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Twitter as always at redrock_bball. Today I'm going to be finishing off my Dynasty re-ranks from the 2018-19 NBA rookie class, NBA draft class. I did the first bunch of guys 24 to 56 in yesterday's show. Today we're going to be going 23 all the way through to number 1 in my re-ranks of these rookies for Dynasty Leagues. Michael Bolton.
Let's get to it.
That's a great idea. So let's start straight away. At number 23, it's Troy Brown of the Washington Wizards. I had him at number 17 in the preseason. I've dropped him down to 23 again, not because of anything he did poorly. He didn't really play at all at the start of the season. The Wizards inexplicably brought in Trevor Ariza, in my opinion, didn't necessarily take away Troy Brown's minutes, but the fact that there was no point in bringing in a 35-year-old Ariza for a team that wasn't going anywhere. But now Ariza's an unrestricted free agent, should not be back. Jeff Green also shouldn't be back. Kelly Oubre is obviously not with the team. So Troy Brown, who started the last chunk of games for this team for the season, has a real chance to be in a larger role next year. It wasn't that his season was fantastic. It wasn't that it was terrible either. 5 points, 3 rebounds, 1.5 assists, 32% from 3, 42% overall. And those shooting concerns are something that he came into the league having, coming out of Oregon, but an ability to rebound, to assist, to generate some steals. These are all the things he can do. And maybe this is a little bit low for Brown to have him at number 23, and there are a few guys ahead of him that I'm putting there purely on potential rather than likelihood of outcome, and you could easily jump him ahead there. But I think Troy Brown has a legitimate chance to be a starter next season. Probably not to be a top 100 player. I think he's more of a top 170 sort of a guy. But I think at some point in his career, he will have a couple of top 100 seasons. It's all just going to come to, can that shooting be good enough? Can he get that shooting to a higher... He's like an Evan Turner sort of a guy. That's the sort of player I think he is. But the shooting needs to get better than Evan Turner to be that consistent top 100 sort of a player. Number 22 is the burner Jalen Brunson of the Dallas Mavericks. A big leap from him. I had him 41 in the preseason. He's all the way up to number 22 now, with the Mavericks clearing house with JJ Barea dealing with an Achilles injury. Brunson really started to develop some chemistry alongside Luka Doncic at the end of the season. Played 22 minutes a game and finished inside the top 260 for rankings. It's the assist ability from him. He shot the ball well as well, 47 and 35 from the field and from three-point range respectively. Getting those assists is key. Over 2 rebounds a game in his 22 minutes, scored 9 points. He could find himself, now depending on what Dallas does, how the lottery plays out in free agency, he could find himself in a 28, 29 minute a roll game again next season with Dennis Smith gone, with Barea returning from injury, and no reason that I think Brunson couldn't be a top 150, even top 130 guy. Usage is a concern. He did play much better when Doncic wasn't in the lineup. That's somewhat of a concern because Doncic is going to be in the lineup majority of the time. But a big step forward from Brunson. Played 73 games this season and looks like he's going to be a consistent rotation guy who probably does top out as a JJ Barea guy, a player who can be a top 120, top 110 guy on the strength of his assists alone. And I think that's where we see Brunson as we move forward. Number 21, Landry Shamet, now of the LA Clippers, originally from the Philadelphia 76ers. I had him number 42 in the preseason. I didn't really like it as a first-round draft pick, but he proved me wrong. Looks to be a very, very strong NBA player. But in saying all that, he still is only the 248th ranked player in fantasy this season. 23 minutes a game, because he is, again, one of those guys who doesn't do all that much more apart from shoot threes. Now, he does that really well. Hit over 2 threes a game, did it at 42%, and is going to be an excellent three-point streamer for many, many years to come. But what else can he do? Under 2 rebounds, 1.5 assists, half a steal in almost 23 minutes. They are really poor numbers. 1 free throw attempt on 81% shooting. Poor numbers because he didn't do anything else apart from spot up and shoot threes. And where does he get any of those other areas in his game to develop? That's why I have concerns with Shamet. So with how well he played in the playoffs and how well he played in this season, I think in a dynasty league, if you've got Landry Shamet now, you might be able to get excess value from him by trading him away. I worry about where those other areas of his game can develop. Other people might completely overrate them, but I've also been wrong on Shamet already. Having him number 42 was wrong to begin the season. So maybe I'm wrong again. Maybe those other areas of his game do start to develop over time. I have my concerns with them. I don't know whether that will ever happen, and I think he could just end up being a Wayne Ellington, not Troy Daniels, better than Troy Daniels, a Wayne Ellington type of guy who goes out there, bangs in 3 threes a game, gives you 12 points a game, and doesn't do a huge amount else because doesn't get to the line, doesn't assist, rebound, steal, block, doesn't do any of those other things, which limits his overall upside. But yeah, really, really big, strong rookie season from Shamet, who could be either a starter or a starter adjacent player for the next 5 to 6 seasons in the NBA. Number 20 is one of those guys I talked about as being an upside potential type of a player. It's Janan Musa of the Brooklyn Nets. I had him number 19 heading into the season. I dropped him down one spot. Again, he didn't really get a huge opportunity this season, dealt with shoulder injuries, a really stacked Nets team in terms of depth-wise. But I think Musa has the ability to really push up and be perhaps a top 50 guy. Likelihood is limited, but the potential is there for Musa, so I'm still really valuing him, and he becomes a really elite dynasty stash or a significant buy low guy, just considering how little he played this season. A 6'9 forward who can handle the ball, who can initiate an offense, who can shoot, who can get to the rack, who can rebound. There's a lot to like about Musa. A lack of defensive numbers is somewhat of a worry, but the other stuff I think all should come together, and I really do like his upside. I think it's quite sensational, actually. Number 19, DeAnthony Melton of the Phoenix Suns. I had him number 16 in the preseason. I've dropped him down 3 spots here. Some of that is his play, some of that is other guys jumping up. He had an opportunity. I thought Kokoshkov misused him significantly. He's the perfect guy, in my opinion, to play alongside Devin Booker. Someone who can just go balls out defensively, can generate steals and blocks at high rates, rebound strongly. Got to work on the shooting, no doubt, with DeAnthony Melton, but he's got this really fantasy-friendly game. He finished this season in under 20 minutes a game as the 192nd ranked player as a rookie. 1.5 steals, half a block, over 3 assists, almost 3 rebounds, and did it while shooting 39% from the field and just 31% from 3. You bump those up to 43% from the field to 34% from 3. You get those 20 minutes up to 26 minutes, and you're very, very comfortably looking at a top 100 player. Whether Tyler Johnson's going to be a factor in Phoenix, whether they draft Ja Morant. There are a lot of ups and downs there with Melton. I'm still believing in him, and when that opportunity arrives, think Patrick Beverley, but I think better than Patrick Beverley, and whether he ever gets those minutes that Beverley's gotten is probably the thing that holds him back. But his ability as a fantasy contributor is sky high. It's all going to come down to opportunity for Melton and whether he can get that opportunity. Number 18 is a tough one. Michael Porter Jr. I had him at 11 in the preseason, and I've dropped him 7 spots, and that's probably unfair. A lot of that's to do with guys like Rowdy Rodions Kurucs and Fanapants Kevin Huerter jumping ahead of him, and we just didn't see Porter this season, and that's the concern. He's played about 6 games in 2 years due to this back injury, rehabbed all of this shit, and he could come back and be totally fine next year, but there is absolutely legitimate concern that he never will be the same player again. Part of the reason he slid down as far as he did to the Denver Nuggets in the draft was the back injury that other teams' doctors were just like, no, we're good, guys. The Clippers had 2 lottery picks and passed on him with both of them. That's a concern. The fact that he didn't play at all this season, no G League, no garbage time, no nothing like that, is a real worry to me. Not because it's they're holding him out like they did with Ben Simmons or Frank Jackson in New Orleans last year. That's not the worry. It's the fact that he hasn't played in 2 years and didn't even get him back on the court at all. So I still think there is upside in him. He doesn't have the most perfect fantasy-friendly game, but obviously still a really talented player that you want to take a flyer on. But my hopes for him have dropped just slightly. Number 17, Josh Okogie of the Minnesota Timberwolves. I had him 20 in the preseason, so he's jumped up 3 spots there. Started for the majority of the second half of this season, but that was with Bob Covington out. So when Covington returns, Okogie likely goes back to the bench behind Wiggins, although you could make an argument in next season or the year after he's going to be a better player than Wiggins. There are plenty of people listening to this podcast who'll make the argument already that he's already better than Wiggins. He still needs to work a lot on his offense, averaged just under 8 points per game, 39 and 28 is his percentages, true shooting of 49, generates steals at 1.2 per game. That's really strong, but it's still not at a hot level, say, of a DeAnthony Melton, so he's not that elite in that area. Now, he had a really strong stretch to end this season, put together some really promising offensive games, but as I mentioned, Jeff Teague was out. I didn't mention that. I mentioned it now. Jeff Teague was out. Robert Covington was out. Derrick Rose was out. Both Teague and Covington are under contract for next season. Rose isn't, so he may not be back. So maybe Okogie can take Rose's backup minutes at the 2, but otherwise, finding an easy role for him to slide in is a little bit tough. And I think that he might be a guy that gets a little bit overrated at times in terms of his overall ability or his overall upside, but I still do like him. I've got him in this spot. He's going to be a consistent rotation player. He can maybe have a top 100 season in the next 4 to 5 years, but I wouldn't be banking on huge upside from Okogie. Number 16 is DRC, Zhaire Smith, who dealt with that weird injury, broke his foot and then had an allergy to sesame oil or something that caused him to lose a ton of weight. He did return at the end of the season, and I thought showed some flashes. It wasn't a huge sample size, 18 minutes a game in 6 games, averaged 7 points, got 0.3 steals and blocks, shot 41% and 38% from 3. The shooting is going to be the real factor here for Zhaire. The hope I have for him is to take a Kawhi-like trajectory, not becoming Kawhi because that's not a possibility, but that Kawhi-like trajectory, the assists, the ball handling, the offensive part of his game start to develop, while the defensive stuff, which is already present, keeps on ticking along. So I think Zhaire still does have significant upside and significant potential. I've just jumped a couple of guys ahead of him here in the ranking, had him at number 10 in the preseason, not expecting him to play only 6 games this season. We'd see a little bit more development, so that pushes him a little bit behind the 8 ball, while other guys stepped up and moved forward in the ranks ahead of him. So I'm still valuing Zhaire. I still think he's a really strong stash guy or buy low guy. I'm just a little bit off on him as opposed to where I was at the beginning of the season. Number 15 is the Fort, Kevin Knox. I had him at 14 in the preseason, so dropped him by 1 spot. Again, a guy I think that is going to be significantly overrated in terms of his value. He played 29 minutes a game and was 277th this season. Horrible efficiency, 37 and 72 from the field and from the line. Generates nothing defensively, doesn't get assists, below average rebounder, didn't hit threes at a high rate or a high volume. A lot of concerns with Knox. I do think that the volume of minutes there is encouraging. He is still really young, so he's under 20. Lots of development to come, so I'm far from writing him off. I don't see him as the massive upside guy that others do. I want to see those other areas of his game come around. Now, I have zero concern that the efficiency will improve. He will not be a guy with a true shooting of 47.5% moving forward. I've got no worries about that, and you shouldn't have that concern. He will, he can easily push to 42% from the field next season and get that true shooting to 51, 52. Will he ever be above league average efficiency? I have my doubts. It's the other stuff. Will he ever be able to get steals, blocks, assists, threes in high volume? I worry about all of those things coming true, and that's what has me down on him in comparison to others. So if you have him, it is a sell high opportunity. People will really buy into the hype, into the upside, into the minutes, into the development, into the youth, all those things, and they could be right. I don't believe they will, because I'm just trying to look at those other areas where he can come back in. So I'm a little bit more down on the fourth than others. Miles Bridges, I had him at 15 in the preseason. He's at 14 now. So basically I flipped him and Knox over. Bridges had some struggles at times. I thought his end of the season was impressive because it was 214th overall this year. He showed an ability to get those steals and blocks. He showed an ability to hit some threes. He was efficient, 46% from the field, true shooting of 55% as a rookie, took on a larger role as the season went on, played 80 games. The Hornets are potentially going to be in transition in this offseason, so there's going to be some opportunities there for him. This even might be a little bit low for Bridges. I don't really see him as a game-changing sort of a guy, but the next 2 guys in my ranks who are ahead of him, or even the next 3 guys, I could see Bridges being better than those players. So this is a really tight bunch here between these guys. But I was impressed with what Miles was able to do this season, and he is already 21 years of age, so maybe he is a couple of years ahead of guys like Kevin Knox in terms of development, years ahead, or a year ahead of some other guys on this list who are ahead of him as well. So there is something there, but he's not old. He's not completely out of it in terms of someone like a Kenrick Williams, who's already 24. Bridges still got a lot of development to go, but showing that defensive foundation, the 1-1 ability. He was at 0.8 threes, 0.7 steals, and 0.6 blocks in 21 minutes. Push that to 30, and he's an easy 1-1 sort of a guy. You got to get a little bit more from getting to the free throw line and assist for him to really step up and be a top 70 guy. But I think top 100 is absolutely in his grasp. Number 13, one of the biggest rises in my re-ranks, Rowdy Rodion's Kourouks of the Brooklyn Nets. He was 29th, so I had him relatively high already in the Dynasty rookie re-ranks. I'm jumping him all the way up to number 13. I think that the Nets, he could be a starter on this team next season. I don't know what they're going to be doing with Damari Carroll. Putting Karis LeVert in there alongside Joe Harris makes a lot of sense, but Carroll, Crabbe, these guys, I'm not sure where they're really fitting on this squad. I think Kourouks, maybe not next year, maybe it's the year after, has multiple top 100 years in him as a player. He was already top 230 this year in 20 minutes a game. Steals and blocks he can generate. He can hit threes. He was efficient, true shooting of 55%. He scored okay on decent usage. He struggled a little bit in the playoffs, in his first NBA playoffs, but I thought what we saw of Kourouks was encouraging enough for me to bump him up this high. You could very easily disagree with this, but I could also make the argument that he could be ahead of a couple of the guys that are ahead of him there. So there's a little bit of a tight bunch here with players, but Rowdy Rodion's Kourouks takes that jump forward to be number 13 in my re-ranks. Number 12 is an interesting one to me.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I dropped Mo Bamba down significantly. I had him at number 7 heading into the preseason. He was really a disaster this season. Poor offensively, poor defensively, and then suffered that broken leg. Really didn't look. And me keeping him actually as high as what he is basically just based on potential. 16 minutes a game, 6 points and 5 rebounds with 1.4 blocks. Horrible free throw shooting. Couldn't hit his threes. 48% from the field. So there's still some value there, but do the Magic look to bring back Nikola Vucevic, keeping Bumba in a backup role for the next 2 to 3 years? I thought he was outplayed by Kem Birch for the majority of this season. Birch, you're going to make the argument Birch outplayed Vucevic in the playoffs. So Birch was a solid enough option there. Will Bumba be able to be enough of a defensive presence? Does he have enough strength to stay on the court long enough? Can he develop a semblance of an offensive game? Because the team was a disaster with him on the court. Really, really poor. Maybe I've overreacted by dropping him all the way down to number 12 from number 7. But it was not encouraging from Bumba. The upside is still there for him. The ability to be a 2.5 blocks per game sort of a player is still there. Can he get into a 14.78 rebound, 1-3 per game guy in 22, 23 minutes? That's the hope at this point. Will he ever become a 30, 33 minute a night guy? I really, really doubt that at this stage. It's still in play. It's still a possibility, but he was a real struggle for the majority of this season to get many positives out of it. Number 11, the Padawan, Collin Sexton. I actually bumped him up 2 spots. I had him number 13 in the preseason, bumped him up to number 11 here. A really massively strong second half to the season for Sexton. He ended the season ranked 181st. Did that in 32 minutes, of course, the second highest amount of minutes played of any rookie behind Luka Doncic, and was still only the 12th ranked rookie. So that should give you an indication of how unfantasy friendly his game is. But 17 points per game, 3rd in rookie scoring, 3 assists, half a steal, 3 rebounds, 0.1 blocks. These are the areas that I have concern with short Kevin Knox. His ability to score is fine, and that efficiency really ramped up at the end of the season. But even in that stage where he was playing fantastically, he was the 90th ranked player over the last 2 months of the season, with 36 minutes a night, shooting 49% from the field and 41% from 3, and sporting a 25% usage, doing that the majority of the time without Kevin Love or really any other quality NBA players. Other guys come into this team, a high lottery pick, Zion arrives, Ja Morant's here on this squad. Who knows what they end up doing with Sexton, but I thought that it was a big step forward from him. I'm not overreacting to it. It was one of those, the season's gone to shit, let's let our rookie do whatever he wants sort of scenarios, and he responded by being real efficient. But the inability to generate assists, to get rebounds, to get steals. He blocked 6 shots the entirety of the season in 2,600 minutes. That's ridiculous. He doesn't get to the line all that much. 3 free throw attempts per game in 32 minutes is not that much. Hits the free throws well, doesn't get there. And the efficiency, again, was impressive, and the fact that he hit his shots at this higher rate was really, really good. But over the final 31 games of the year, 49% on 2s, and there's quite a few long 2s in there as well, is somewhat of a concern for Collin Sexton. So I think that there is a little bit of sell high ability here with the Padawan. If people are really buying into what he does, I don't think that he is a Rookie of the Year candidate. I don't think he's a top I don't think he's a first team or rookie sort of a player, to be honest, but others will disagree, and you might be able to get at least a decent return from him. If I had the opportunity to trade him for Mitchell Robinson, Marvin Bagley, Wendell Carter, McCall Bridges, I'd do it for any of those guys. Of course, Jaren Jackson Jr., Trae Young, that's their no-brainer decisions to make those deals. So I've got Sexton there coming in at number 11. Number 11, that'd be better English. Number 10, Fanta Pants Kevin Huerter, who started the majority of the season. You would imagine he's locked in as the starter for the Atlanta Hawks next year. Not even 21 years of age at this point. He can pass. Now, he averaged 2.9 assists, basically the same amount as Collin Sexton, playing as a shooting guard, playing 5 fewer minutes per game. That shows you Sexton's deficiency in that area, but also Huerter's strength in being able to distribute the ball. Almost a steal a game. Hit almost 2 threes per game. Efficiency, 38% from 3, really strong. I think he pushes into a 30, 32 minute a night role next season and can be a consistent top 100 player in the next 2 to 3 seasons. So Huerter looks to be to establish as a starting shooting guard in Atlanta, and maybe this is even a little bit low for Huerter. I had him 25 in the preseason, obviously way off there. Got him at number 10 now. The fact that this rookie class is so strong probably keeps him from being higher, but I think this is probably a fair spot to have Huerter. Number 9, no change from his preseason ranking, McCall Bridges of the Phoenix Suns. I still think he's got significant upside. He was ranked 132 this year. He's got top 70 upside, 30 minutes a game, steals, blocks, threes. He showed flashes with assists. He was efficient, true shooting of 56%. Really liked what we see from Bridges. To me, he is already a better player than Josh Jackson, and they should be prioritizing getting him the minutes alongside Devin Booker. Ideally, they're playing Devin Booker at point guard, but they don't continue to do that. Bridges' low usage is a problem. That should be able to ramp up over the next 2 to 3 years. And if he can become a 12-point guy with 3 assists, 5 rebounds, 1.8 steals and a block per game, I wouldn't be stunned. Hit his free throws at a higher level, but needs to improve that free throw rate. But already a really strong performance from him as a rookie. McCall Bridges comes in there at number 9. Also unchanged is number 8, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, starting player on a playoff team. 133 this year is his ranking, 27 minutes a game, showed to pick that up in the playoffs, really efficient, true shooting of 55%, 37 on his threes, got to the line 2.5 times per game, 3 assists, a steal, half a block. I think he's got top 50 upside. Again, like so many of these guys, 8, 9, and 10, they'd all be top 5 players in majority of rookie classes. This isn't the majority of rookie classes, so Shai is down here at number 8, but it's pretty hard to argue with his upside. A guy that took a big leap forward here at number 7 is Mitchie Robinson. I had him number 12 in the preseason, which seems ridiculous given that he was a second-round pick, but I was obviously really high on him. Hopefully you guys took advantage of me being so high on him. I've gone even higher now, up to number 7 with Mitch Robinson. He was the 79th ranked player this year in under 21 minutes a game. There is legit top 20 potential here with Robinson, as long as he gets an NBA caliber coach and is able to stay on the court without fouling. If he gets 30 minutes a night, there's no worries to me about being a top 30 guy. Now, blocks in these guys, a block rate and per minute block rates tend to decrease over a player's career, so expect that to be a concern. The 69% Giggity. Shooting from Robinson is not something that should be considered outrageous. He's claiming he wants to shoot threes. We don't need him to shoot threes. Strong rebounding. Scoring was okay. Efficient. Generated steals. He's never going to be an assist guy. Think of Hassan Whiteside as his peak. Can Robinson get to that? Shit, yeah, he can. So I really, really like his upside. So I've got him all the way here at number 7. Marvin Bagley, also unchanged. I had him at number 6 in the preseason. I'm keeping him at number 6. He only played 25 minutes a night, 141st ranking for the season. The lack of efficiency is something that does worry me. 31% on his threes. Now, he did hit 50% over all of his field goals because he was 53% on twos, but 69% Giggity. On free throws is a worry. Half a steal only, 1 assist, 1 block. These are all the concerns I had with Bagley heading into the season, is that will he get any assists, steals, or blocks, and where will his efficiency be? Well, the blocks were a little bit higher than I anticipated. The field goal percentage was a bit higher, but still struggled with his threes in those other areas. Averaged 15 and 7.5, and the counting stats are going to look good for him. I think he could potentially look like a Zach Randolph type of a player, a 20 and 10 guy with nothing else in any other category, and that's still a really good fantasy player, but does it top out with some of the other well-rounded guys ahead of him? That's where I have my concern with Bagley. The top 5, Yeah, not much change from where these guys were in the preseason. The top 5 in the preseason are still the top 5 here. In fact, the top 6 are still the top 6 from what I had in the preseason. Just a bit of a change in order. Wendell Carter Jr. I had at number 4. I've dropped him down to number 5 through no real fault of his own. He was 111th this season in only 25 minutes. He's got that top 30, top 25 upside. Needs to hit his threes at a better rate, just 19% this season, but can block shots, get steals, can pass, can rebounds, can score. He's got the entire package. Massive upside for him. He's only down at number 5 because the bloke who was at number 5 has leapt well ahead of him. I'm sure you all know who that is. Number 4 is DeAndre Ayton. I had him at number 3 at the beginning of the season, and that seems pretty ridiculous for the bloke who was the number 1 ranked rookie this season, 41st overall. But as I've said with Ayton so many times, what is his potential to get better? Is his potential to get better higher than the 3 guys I have ahead of him? I don't believe it is. I think he can be a top 25 guy, but I think the guys ahead of him could be top 20, maybe top 15 players, and that's why I have him ahead there, or them ahead. 16 and 10 with a steal and a block. That 0.9 blocks for him is a worry. That's where the value he's got to get. I think he will start to shoot some threes. Efficiency, 61% true shooting. Excellent stuff from DeAndre Ayton. Really, really good rookie year. I just look at where the value can top out. Number 3 is Triple J, Jaren Jackson Jr. I had him number 2 heading into the season. Foul trouble was a real issue, just 26 minutes a game, but he was 84th this season. 14 and 5 with 1.4 blocks on 51 and 77% shooting. You could make the argument that him and Ayton, maybe they could switch positions. I still believe Jackson's got an ability to be a 20-point per game guy while blocking over 2 shots per game, and that's why I have him higher. But you could easily make that argument to have Ayton ahead of him. I don't think too many people would think you're too wrong. Number 2 is Trae Young. I had him at number 5 heading into the season. I've bumped him all the way up to number 2. He is looking like he's going to be a consistent top 20 player for many years to come. End of the season, ranked 59th. So that's number 3 in rookies. As I said, Ayton was number 1 there, but I think Young, with what he showed in that second half of the season, started to figure things out. And it wasn't like he was flame-throwing 44% of his threes and doing it just at a more reasonable level. Assists, if the steals come up, his value increases again. This is a consistent, I think, second-round guy for years to come. He might be overdrafted next season, but in the long run, I think that Trae Young has shown he can be a really, really consistent fantasy threat. And then at number 1, Luka Doncic remains at number 1. He was my number 1 guy heading into the season. He was 55th this season, and really only brought down by a lack of efficiency. 43 from the field and 71 from the line. Don't be surprised to see those free throws back at 80 next season, 45% from the field, and then you've got a top 20 guy already, averaging 21, 8, and 6 with a steal per game, hitting over 2 threes per game. Doncic's ceiling is really, really ridiculously high. Again, if you wanted to have Young over him for fantasy, I could understand that. I wouldn't have it. I still think Doncic's upside is significantly higher than Trae's, but this top of this class is absolutely ridiculous in terms of the value there, and those top 10 guys would probably all be top 5 players in this upcoming draft. They would all be top 5 guys. Those top 10 guys, I think, outside of Zion. I haven't done the full translations and all those rookies, but there is some interesting value in these guys. Real lot of really good players in this draft class. So that's my dynasty re-rank going from 56 through to number 1. Luka Doncic holds on to the number 1 spot. Make sure you are subscribing to this podcast, Locked On Fantasy Basketball, on the Himalaya podcast app, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and on YouTube. Hit subscribe, ring the bell, like it, leave a comment, all that great stuff. You know how to do it. Follow me on Twitter at redrock_bball. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya. McCall Bridges.